Welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. Hope you're having a great day as we continue to enjoy celebrating so many wonderful people who are working so hard to make Mississippi such a great place to live, work, and play. And man, it has been a heck of a week as far as guests are concerned. So if you missed this week, I talked to so many different people who either they're engaging on podcasts or they're engaging through social media. Lots and lots of people engaging on the radio. Of course, you can go to supertalk.fm and just go to the bottom and hit watch at 9:06 when the show starts, and you can actually watch the show on SuperTalk TV. People who have C-Spire TV can watch it there as well. But so many people are engaging. We really appreciate you doing that. I'm amazed. I had lunch the other day, and a couple of people stopped me and said, enjoyed that show or enjoyed this show. Thank you for what you're doing to bring focus. And what I find the most that as far as feedback that I get from people is that it's not about me. It's the comments I get are always about a conversation I had with a guest, something related to a guest, which is what the focus is going to be. That is for sure. One quick quote to share. It's not associated with anybody, but I saw it and I just thought it was so perfect, and it's an underlying theme to the show often for sure. And here it is: taking care of yourself is an essential part of taking care of others. The healthier the tree, the better the fruit it can offer. I think that's so true. If you got yourself together, both physically and mentally, I think the two go together. You can be a better friend, a better husband, a better boyfriend, girlfriend, father, you name it, father, mother. Just really good advice. So anyway, we really appreciate you joining us and engaging with the show. We just love getting feedback. Now let's shift gears and move over to Jeff Duncan from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. He is on the Hall of Fame, NFL Hall of Fame selection committee. He's an award-winning columnist. He's written a number of books about the Saints, but more recently he wrote a book with Steve Gleason about Steve Gleason's life. And just 2 hours ago, Jeff posted an incredible story, something really special that's about to happen to Steve Gleason. But before we get to that, let me just say good morning, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing good,
Jeff,
Ricky.
Excuse me. Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Oh, good. Great to hear from you, as always.
Listen, man, Steve continues to inspire, and this award will give him the opportunity to inspire even more. I think it's terrific recognition. Why don't you tell people about what you wrote about?
Yeah, sure. It's, the Arthur Ashe Courage Award, Ricky, is really the most prestigious award that the ESPN, the ESPY Award Show gives every year. You might remember the Jim Valvano speech back in 1993, "Don't give up, don't ever give up," that launched the V Foundation. That's the original award that he won back in the 90s. And it's an award that recognizes courage, humanitarianism, making an impact, transcending sports. I can't think of anybody more deserving than Steve. So, yeah, we're very excited about this opportunity. The awards ceremony will be nationally televised on ESPN on July 11th from Los Angeles. So I think it's going to be a very special night. I know Steve's been working diligently on his speech, which I'm sure is going to be incredibly powerful. So I'm really looking forward to that night.
July 11th, incidentally, my anniversary. Ann and I had our first date on July 11th. We got married on July 11th, and our last son, Justin, was born on July 11th. So That's a special date for us. But what a special date for Steve. You think about the inspiration that he is. And the bigger the stage, the more he's able to say, what I've tried to share in my book is a book about life, not about ALS. It's about living with difficulties and transcending difficulties and being resilient as a human being and all that. And the gift that you were able to get from helping to write that book with Steve, the bigger the stage for the book, the better. Don't you agree?
Oh, yeah. The platform is going to grow immensely now, and that's really rewarding for us because we think Steve's message needs to reach and resonate with as many people as possible. And this is certainly going to give him that opportunity. I know that's one of the reasons he's so excited about it. He obviously is humbled. He's won a lot of awards over the years, but this is definitely one of the most prestigious ones he's been awarded. And, we're really excited about it. He's going to be obviously live on stage receiving the award. There's going to be a special feature story about his life. And it's going to reach people that haven't heard his story. That's what's most exciting.
And I know, you and I talked about this, in fact, the last time we were together, but he was at Congress bringing attention to ALS. So not only is this an important opportunity for him to talk about the message about life that he has gained from all of this, but boy, the attention he's able to give to ALS and funding from ALS to try to continue to work hard to seek a resolution for that just incredibly difficult disease. That's probably the main thing on his mind, I would think.
Yeah, it is. I think what he's shown with how he's lived his life since being diagnosed is that you can still be productive and still have a purpose. I mean, Steve's still the provider for his family. They've had 2 children since he was diagnosed. He and Michelle live a very active life. He's not just surviving with ALS, he's thriving. And I think he wants as many people that are unfortunately diagnosed with this disease to understand they too can live with purpose and production. And it's not a death sentence when you're diagnosed. And I think that life encouragement, that hope that he's instilled in people has been transcendent and needs to be recognized. And I have to credit ESPN for recognizing Steve for this award. I mean, we've actually been after them for a while. I know I wrote a letter of recommendation a decade ago. So he's been on their radar, and it's really nice to see them finally recognize it.
Yeah, it is really good to see. Hey, listen, of course, everybody's talking about, everybody's speculating about where's the Alvin Kamara situation going. Have you heard any little bits and pieces of information about that gives you some insights?
No, not at all. It's been very quiet on the Saints front. I mean, a lot of people are on vacation right now. It's kind of a time when people get away. The rookies stayed over for about an extra week, but most of the rest of the team was all gone except for the rookies, and most of the front office was gone. So I think most of that stuff's been put on the back burners. Everybody takes a little much-deserved break away from football. Everybody's been grinding through the offseason. They'll reconvene. I think they'll get back together on that toward the start of training camp. I don't think anybody wants to see this last into the regular season, but it is a dicey situation. I think the Saints are stuck a little bit in between of wanting to reward Alvin Kamara for what he's done for the organization, being a captain, not a captain, but a team leader, a very productive player. But also recognizing, one of the worst things you can do in professional sports is reward somebody for past performance and not the future. And I think that's what's caused this stalemate.
It's a very interesting situation. I think best case scenario, he gets a 3-year deal. He ends his career at the Saints. He gets the guaranteed money he's looking for. It's not as much as he's looking for. And he comes out of the gate in this new offense and just blows and goes. And that's likely, don't you think?
Well, I think the deal's likely. I think he's going to compromise on both sides, and they'll reach some kind of agreement. Now, what he does in this offense, I'm waiting to see. I want to see how it plays out. I do think, the history of this running game has been very good to running backs. So we'll see if it plays out. I actually am encouraged to see some of the other backs. I want to see Kendre Miller in it. I want to see Taysom Hill, and see if this does, in fact, play out. I think it goes beyond the X's and O's, though. You've got to block people. You've got to have athletes at the offensive line positions. All those things have to be executed. This isn't. I remember Zach Strief telling me a long time ago, we're not running magic plays here. What we're running is not special. It's everyone runs the same plays. It's all about the players executing it, and then the coaches enforcing and holding players accountable for that execution are putting people in the right spots. And I think that's what needs to take place here for this thing to be successful.
Well, listen, you're not a hype trainer, and as a general rule, I'm not. I'm more positive though this year than I was last year, because I do think Kubiak has been incredibly methodical, and it's very clear that Derek Carr has been doing his homework, and all reports are. I get it. In OTAs, you can't make any big decisions about what you see. But the thing is, you can evaluate whether someone knows the offense or not. Are they getting into the huddle? Are they getting out of the huddle? Do they know the calls? Do they play well in that regard? A lot of good things being said about our young offensive line. Again, they're not hitting, they're not in pads, they're not hitting. But in terms of knowing where to go out in space and so on, a young crop, if they can be just average, we can do really well. And the other thing, you mentioned Taysom Hill. It's been great reading more about Taysom Hill. It is clear Kubiak, he's not going to be a gadget player in this offense. He's going to have a role to play in this offense. And if he gets hot, he has a great opportunity. And even beyond Kendrick Miller, incidentally, we got some young running backs that could emerge. So there's a lot to watch when we get to training camp, isn't there?
Yeah, look, I think the young players are going to be a critical component for this team. Not just the rookies, but last year's rookie class as well. They've got to step forward. They're going to be asked to play key roles for this team.
It's going to be so interesting. Peyton Turner, if he can stay healthy on the defensive side of the ball, we picked up some studs. If they can be healthy, I mean, again, it always comes back to the same thing. When we come back on the other side, we're going to talk about something Rick Eisman said and see what Jeff has to say about it. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show. We have Jeff Duncan from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune with us. Before we get to this point that I made before we went to break about Rick Eisman and what he had to say, I want to kind of bring your attention to the Saints Insider podcast that the team that covers the Saints, this podcast they do. You can watch it on YouTube. I'm assuming it's available on your favorite podcast platforms. But I watched the last one you guys did. And I've watched you guys for a time, so I get a sense of tone. I get a sense of that. And you got a bunch of guys that sit around that table that really know what they're talking about. They watch the team very closely, and none of them are big hype train kind of guys. None of them. But the last one, I could tell you guys are warming up a little bit. Even you, Jeff, even you were more positive than I've heard you.
Well, I will say Luke is a glass half full guy. I always kind of needle him a little bit. But, this is the time of year where it's easy to get optimistic. I mean, look, I was as optimistic as anybody last year at this time because Derek Carr looked great in the summer. I wrote about it. I wrote, hey, look, this guy is exactly what they need. And then when the season started, it changed. So I'm a little more hesitant because I can remember how good Derek Carr looked last year.
Yeah.
But now, the thing I like about is what you said. The thing that I'm most impressed by is it's a whole new offensive system, a whole new way of attacking things, and they're pretty efficient. They're not, the ball's not on the ground a lot. There's not a lot of false starts. There's a lot of reasons to like what you're seeing, but it all will change once the season starts and you start pass rushing guys. I mean, right now no one's pass rushing. It's hard to. The offense should look good in these conditions, I guess is what I'm saying.
Hey, listen, one of the big things, you and I have talked about this before, but I was saying y'all talked about it to some extent as well on the Saints Insider podcast, is that there's an evolution of understanding about what they're doing to create more accountability in the system. How they're doing meetings, how they're each other, holding each other accountable and telling each other you need to do that again. But the high standard they're creating. And they seem to be buying around that. I've seen various interviews with various players, and they all talk about it, that there's a methodical aspect to this, that when you add to it as well, this building and more accountability, something's different about this team. I wonder if I always say the media universe isn't really clued into some of the significant changes that are happening here.
Well, I think those are all positive signs. There's no doubt. I mean, that needed to be done. If you talk to the leaders on the offense, they'll tell you the accountability wasn't there a year ago. And that's in part on them, too. I mean, it's not just the coaches, the leaders on the offense. In part, you're only as good as your team leaders that take ownership of the team. So that's on them as well, and guys have said as much. But you still have to get through all that, Ricky, and look at the roster and look at the talent. I mean, X's and O's, stuff like that only goes so far. And, this team is not nearly as deep as past teams. And that's what I was getting at earlier before we went to the break. They're going to be asking these young players. If you look at the starting lineup on this team, it's pretty solid. Both sides of the ball, there's some holes here and there. But for the most part, I think it's competitive with the rest of the division. But once you get past the starting lineup, I mean, the days of them having guys like Teddy Bridgewater as a backup quarterback, or Mark Ingram in the backfield behind Alvin Kamara, I mean, those days are over. There's a lot of question marks, and there's going to be injuries. It happens every year. So you're going to be asking some of these young players that haven't done anything yet to step in. And I think that's my question on this team is when these injuries happen, they're going to happen. Can, the backups perform at the NFL level because they haven't done it yet? I know there's a lot of promise there. There's a lot of hope. The coaching staff's very high on some of these young players, but we just haven't seen it yet. And you don't know until you do it. I mean, Trevor Penning looked great until he had to do it, and then he struggled. So it really comes down to how they perform in the games.
Yeah, I mean, really, you get down to it. Of course, before the season started, we said we're going to win. We're going to win this. We're going to win in the trenches, both offense and defense. Defensive line didn't perform as well as it needed to. Offensive line was a disaster, at least in the first part of the season. That led to concussions and shoulder injuries. And, I mean, Derek Carr got beat the heckin' back. If you can protect him, and in this new offense, you can get the ball out a little bit quicker. I mean, that's the goal. You're trying to get – in fact, the offensive lineman said this. This offense, if we execute it accordingly, that it's better. It puts less pressure on the offensive line. And the other thing is we got offensive linemen who can run. They won't be standing back trying to grind it out. Eric McCoy made the comment that – you're trying to stop men like Bosa who are trying to come at you and just get 4 feet, and you're standing your ground trying to keep them from getting 4 feet. This is hard, man. It's really hard. So anything that you can do with an offense that slows those guys down and gets these guys out in space, that's the goal of this new offense. And it's cool to start to think about the contrast between where we were last year and what could be this year. Again, I'm not overly hyping it. I'm just saying you're looking at some of the nuances that's evolving, and it's there's some exciting possibilities.
Yeah. Look, I think there's reason to be optimistic, but I'm also very much aware that if you talk to NFL people, you talk to personnel people, you read analysis, this roster is one of the bottom third of the league, talent-wise. Yeah, talent-wise. So here's what I mean. There's no magic plays to overcome talent, So that's my point.
So here's what Eisman said. He said the Saints, and okay, this is kind of best case scenarios, and it's just looking at what is possible in the best case scenario. They win the division and get into the playoffs. Okay, probably that's maybe that's the most we can hope for in this first year. But, okay, Carolina, some improvement. Young gets a little bit better. Not much to say about Carolina. But when he got to Tampa and Atlanta, he said they both could go to the Super Bowl. Of course, he's not, he's just saying, okay, for this team, if these things fall into place, got a new quarterback, you got a good quarterback in Atlanta. Got a great rookie that's going to come behind him. He'll be ready to go in if your starting quarterback is hurt. Got some stars. Same thing. I think he's putting way too much focus on Baker Mayfield. Now that he's got his money, he's going to do such and such, and he's paid money to some of the guys around him, et cetera. But when he got done though, Jeff, and it was hard to hear, man. He said, in Atlanta, I see them. They go to the Super Bowl in New Orleans. Can you imagine what that's going to feel like? I'm like, oh God, please don't be.
Yeah, I agree with him on Atlanta. I don't see it in Tampa. I think the Saints' biggest competition is going to be Atlanta. I think Tampa could be one of these teams that takes a big step back. But I think Atlanta is the clear-cut team to beat in the division. When you look at their line, their defensive line, their offensive line, I think they're in much better shape than the Saints, and they've got playmakers at every skill position spot. They just need adequate quarterback play, and Kirk Cousins will give them that. So I think they're a definite sleeper team in the NFC, but I don't see anybody in the NFC South contending really with San Francisco and even Philadelphia or Dallas, those elite teams in the division. I keep saying this over and over, Ricky. We're going to find out really quickly when the Saints go out in San Francisco and work against the 49ers in those joint practices, preseason game, and then in week 2, they're going to go to Dallas. I mean, in my opinion, those are the two best teams in the NFC, and we're going to have a really good gauge of where they stand in those two games.
Well, if there's anything positive, we're hitting Dallas early in the season. They're still trying to put all the new stuff together, et cetera. So if you're going to hit them, I guess early in the season is the time to hit them. But of course, you could say the same thing about Saints. We're doing the same thing, Yeah,
there's going to be bumps in the road with this new offense. I mean, just be prepared. It's not going to be seamless. They're going to have some struggles. It's inevitable. I mean, even the Peyton Breeze offense. You go back and look. In 2006, they were throwing for 160, 170 yards in the first games. They weren't lighting it up. It took all the way to really the end of 2008 before that thing really started rolling. So it's going to take some time.
And Jeff, you look at if they were to lay an egg against Carolina, that would be a depressing start, wouldn't it?
Well, if that happens, I don't even want to know what to say. I mean, I think they're going to really have to overachieve to be anything better than 1-4 to start the season. And then I think doubt creeps in when you start 1-4. I mean, it's going to be really a test of this coaching staff and this leadership if they do start slowly. And I mean, Ricky, they're going to be underdogs in 4 of those 5 games. That's the only game they're going to be favored. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how they navigate it.
Hey, listen, literally while I'm sitting here, I just got a breaking news alert from ESPN. Literally just came across, popped up on my phone. Steve Gleason to receive the Arthur Ashe Courage Award, written by none other than Catherine Terrell.
Yes, yeah, I know. She knew about it. I'd let her in on the news for a few weeks. Yeah, no, it's a huge honor. I mean, it's the biggest.
Catherine Terrell used to work with us, and we know her well. And she's an ESPN staff writer now. But you broke it before she did. So.
Well, I hope so. I'm on the inside of that. But yeah, I mean, look, Muhammad Ali, Billie Jean King, Pat
Robin
Tillman.
Roberts, right?
Yeah, the prestigious list of recipients it's a great honor for Steve. We're really, really excited about it.
Listen, take care, my friend. Hope you have a great week. In fact, I'll be out next week, so we'll be connecting the week after that. So, God bless you, my friend. Thanks for joining us.
All right, Ricky. We'll talk in a couple weeks.
Have you bet. We'll come back. We have JT Mitchell from SuperTalk Mississippi News. We'll see you after this.